Here, a young person on fire for the Catholic faith through apologetics. And I just want to set the stage here and tell us a little bit about yourself, the kind of family you came from. And then what we're going to do, William, is get into what you're doing using, the social media to bring more young people into understanding their faith through apologetics. So give us a little background about yourself.
Sounds good. All right. As he said, my name is William, and I'm a 14-year-old Catholic. I was raised cradle Catholic my whole life.
Yes.
I have 3 siblings.
Mm-hmm.
We would go to Mass every Sunday, but I never really got into my faith until in 6th grade. I was under the influence of an amazing seminarian,
Mm-hmm.
and he convinced me to pray more often and to start doing the rosary daily.
Awesome.
And I just fell in love with it. And then, so I never realized that there's this big of a Catholic community on the internet. So I found your show, Mr.
Mm-hmm.
Barber,
Sure.
and I found Dr. Taylor Marshall's show.
Good.
And they gave great spiritual direction. So I started really getting into it, and I've developed an attachment to the extraordinary form of the Mass.
Good.
And there's been many other devotions that just come out of great podcasts like these. So I'm really happy for this kind of community on the internet.
Well, tell me now, when COVID-19 hit, I think you said to me on the phone that you were involved with a youth group and they couldn't meet. So what did you actually do to kind of, accommodate your faith with the issue of not being able to meet? What did you do to continue that?
Yeah, for sure. I go to Novus Ordo Mass every Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
and at my parish, the youth group, they didn't do any calls, so there was no direction of a youth minister. There was no more discussing your faith with friends
Wow.
within youth group of our parish. So I talked to my friend,
Mm-hmm.
and then he said, "Oh, why don't we start a virtual youth group?" So we went on Instagram, TikTok, all the social media apps,
Mm-hmm.
and said, "Hey, anyone want to join in on a virtual youth group?" So a lot of people really thought this was a great idea.
Good.
So we started a chat, and then right now we have 350 people in it.
I love it.
So we have a chat. Yeah. So we have a chat, and people keep joining every day.
Good.
And what we do is we have different Zooms every week talking about a different topic. So the first one was about the papacy and the Eucharist.
Good.
And it was a great Zoom, and a lot of people had never heard any of the things we were talking about before, which was quite magnificent to me. I never realized how people didn't realize this stuff when they were super into their faith.
Mm-hmm.
So it's quite magnificent how we've seen this kind of education play on through the youth group.
Well, Father Murr, jump in because you have also helped young William in teaching the faith. And I just want to say one thing, and then Father Murr can jump in. I'm just impressed that you've got young people wanting to know their faith, and you're giving them resources. I think I heard that you actually had Bishop Athanasius Schneider on one of your chats. Is that true, or is that just a rumor?
That's correct. We had him on a Zoom call for an hour and a half.
Oh, my gosh. And what about Jesse Romero?
We just had him on for 40 minutes, and he gave an excellent talk on exorcisms. We had no idea about how cool exorcisms work until Mr. Romero come on.
Awesome. Father Murr, what's your take on this young man?
Well, Terry, first of all, Will, hello. Welcome.
Thank you, Father Murr. It's great to be back with you.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a pleasure, believe me. I was talking to Terry last week, and I explained to him last Saturday. Was it Saturday?
I think so, Father.
Saturday we had the phone call. It was fantastic, and I was just sharing that with Terry. I said, this is really somebody you should get on the show, not me. This young man, But the enthusiasm that they had, Terry.
Yes.
I spent a lot of time going on and on and on talking, but we spent over an hour, easily over an hour, taking questions from mostly the young men from all over the place.
Good.
And they were the questions were intelligent. The reactions were wonderful. You know what? I'm gonna congratulate Will on this right now. He's got the 2 components that are most important for success in as much as getting to heaven.
Yes.
And they are the faith, the Catholic faith, the true Catholic faith, and a sense of humor. You've got those 2 things.
That's awesome. Yeah, I agree with you. Well, let me ask you this, my friend. You had a great love for the Eucharist, especially the extraordinary form of the Mass, and you go to the ordinary form of the Mass both. But tell me what the young people understood about the Eucharist. Did they have an understanding that it really is, Jesus, body, blood, soul, and divinity? And also, did they understand something that I found when I was 14 through Fulton Sheen, that when we're at Mass, we're present at that one eternal sacrifice? Tell me about what you found with the young people.
In my experience with them, they understood in name only what that meant for the Eucharist to be the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ. So they would maybe think about that like once in a consecration, but they never had the experience to fall in love with it because they didn't know what direction to use to get greater devotion to the Eucharist. So, for example, many of them would just like go up every week, receive communion on the hand reluctantly, and then leave and hope their parents didn't force them to go to Mass any more than once a week. So it was never really like a true love for it in them until most of them found this group. So they definitely understood intellectually that, yeah, it's the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Christ, but they never realized how great of an experience that was. And many of them never fully understood it until I convinced them to go to the extraordinary form, and they realized how beautiful and how much the Mass is centered around that.
Oh, yeah.
So I think the Mass felt more like from my experience talking to them, it felt more like a community to them rather than a sacrifice, and they never realized how much of a sacrificial element there was until they either talked to a really good priest, listen to a speaker, or even just go to the extraordinary form.
Got it. Father Murr, follow up on that, because Father Murr also loves the extraordinary form. Father, doesn't that extraordinary form point that out? Go ahead.
This is exactly what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
This is what Aquinas beautifully represents or talks about when he says, you cannot love anything you don't know.
There you go.
Right? Well, and then when you do know it, you can love it. And when you love it, you know it more. All right? It's a marvelous dynamic in this. But our problem is, especially with, I don't want to get into the new Mass, the old Mass thing,
Sure.
right? But nobody, I shouldn't say nobody either. Terry, stop me from generalizing.
Yeah, very few. Let's just say. Go ahead. Yeah, I'm not.
All right,
Yeah,
all
I
right.
got it.
Very few explain this.
Yeah, they do.
No, it's not explained
That's
any
right.
longer.
That's right.
And then of course, when you don't have the reverence and the mystery, well, how do you explain it? How do you draw people to that mystery? It's not there. It's not inviting. So I think Will, you're on the right track.
Yeah. And Will, let me ask you this. You mentioned that in the 6th grade, a priest or a seminarian helped you with the rosary. I have found, this has just been my experience, that when I share the rosary with young people, old people, anybody, and I share them with what we do with the rosary, how it's meditative music when we're meditating on the scriptures. And I have found that people are very open to it if someone shares it in a right way. So what's been your experience with the young people when you talk about the rosary?
Yeah, absolutely. For the rosary, they've always known that it's like something good to pray, but they never realized how much there was to it. They never realized it was just like praying a Hail Mary over and over again for 50 Hail Marys, and then you were over with the rosary. Never realized it was actually a meditation on the gospel itself with that aid of the extra prayers. So we do every night, actually, we do a rosary, a monthly prayer based on what month's devotion it is. So right now it's devotion to the Immaculate Heart, well, because we're in August.
Sure.
And then finish the night off with Compline. So many of them, they really didn't understand the mystery behind the rosary, but rather only that they were praying just for the purpose of, this might help me get to heaven. It was never really devotion that you could fall in love with until they realized like how much connection to the gospel does this prayer actually have to do with.
Got it. Father Murr, jump in.
Will, let me add something to that from Fulton J. Sheen.
I knew it.
That
I knew
I
it.
learned from him. Always with a smile, and I love this.
Yeah.
Sheen said when people would talk, well, saying the Hail Mary over and over and over again. It's like a parrot. You're just, you're parroting these words, and they don't mean anything. And Sheen said, no. He said, stop and think. If you know a woman who doesn't love to hear more than once that you love her, how many times can you say I love you to a woman and she'll say, stop, I don't want to hear it anymore?
Nope, doesn't happen.
And that's what each Hail Mary is.
Yep.
That's what each Hail Mary is.
Wow. Will, before we go to the quick break, how can people be part of your social media team? What do they need to do? Do you have like a email address or social media?
Yeah, absolutely. You can just email me at ringo.clays@gmail.com, and I will send you the link to the chat. We use GroupMe. So the age range is roughly from like 12 to, let's say, 27. So if you have any young man, young woman, anyone who's fallen in love with their faith, then please just email me, ringo.clays@gmail.com, and I will email you the link to the chat, and the Zooms will all be up there. So you can, most of them are on YouTube, so you can watch them there. We'll post a Zoom link in the chat every time that we have a speaker on. So all you do is email me, ringo.clays@gmail.com, and you can be part of this youth group.
Great. William, I'm going to ask you a question. You're going to have a 2-minute break to figure out the answer to this. But statistically, young men and women that are in the church today, by the time they're 23 years of age, 83% of those young people are not practicing their Catholic faith. It's a crisis. Young people are not getting it. What I'm going to ask you as a young man of 14 years old who loves the Catholic faith, what do we need to do to help young people fall in love with Jesus Christ and his bride, the church? This is something we try to do here at Virgin Most Powerful Radio, but I want to understand your take as a 14-year-old guy who loves his faith. Think about 83% of your young people who are 14 right now, by the time they're 23, will not be practicing their faith. That's tragic, and I would love to turn this thing around. And I did send you my book on how to share your faith with anyone. I got your address the other day, so you'll be getting my take on evangelization. But I want to hear from you as a young person to tell us how we can bring our young people to a deeper love of Jesus Christ and his bride, the church. You're listening to the Terry and Jesse Show. I hope you're being inspired as I am listening to William, 14 years old, who loves his Catholic faith, is not afraid to share it on the internet. We'll be back with Father Charles Murr, William, and myself to help you fall deeper in love with Jesus Christ and his bride, the church. Help the Helpless, a Minnesota St. Paul nonprofit organization chaired by Father Altier and volunteers, is humbly asking you for your kind support to help the poor and the handicapped children in India and Ecuador. Through financial support from the Help of the Helpless benefactors, the children are provided with clothing, food, education, shelter, and the teachings of the Catholic Church. The mission is to help children thrive and become self-sufficient young adults leading productive lives. We also provide aid to poor families in Ecuador with food baskets, medicines, medical assistance, and help with funeral needs for the deceased. The work in India is done by Father Antonio's organization, St. Mary's. In Ecuador, the work is being done by the Servant Sisters of the Home of Mother. You can call us at 877-762-8857. To learn more, please visit our website, www.helpthehelpless.org. God bless you.
Join VMPR live on YouTube September 12th, 2020 for our latest free conference, The Ultimate Challenge. This exclusive virtual event will feature a brand new talk from Jesse Romero, How Apologetics Brought Me Back to Faith, plus never-before broadcast video presentations from Dr. Scott Hahn, Father Mitch Pacwa, and the late, great Father Benedict Rochelle. Go to vmpr.org to register now and get ready to face the ultimate challenge.
This is Terry Barber. I want to thank you for your support here at Virgin Most Powerful Radio. Here's an easy way to do it. If you're going to sell or buy a house, call Real Estate for Life, 877-543-3871, because they're going to get you a Christ-centered agent to purchase your home or to sell your home. And at the close of escrow, a portion of his commission goes right back to Virgin Most Powerful Radio. Call 877-543-3871. Thank you so much for your support.
Welcome back to the Terry and Jesse Show. To join the conversation, call 888-526-2151. Now, here's Terry and Jesse.
Welcome back to the Terry and Jesse Show. I'm so happy I met William through Father Murr, 14 years old. He's on fire for the Catholic faith. I'm a big guy on problem solution. Problem is, many young Catholics, as we all know who are listening, are kids. Many of them aren't practicing their faith. And I asked William, who's 14, who's got an internet program where he's at a youth group meeting around the world with people who are interested in their faith. I asked William, 83% of young people by the time they're 23 are not practicing their Catholic faith. So I'm going to turn it over to you, William, and ask you that question. What would you suggest? What do you think a good solution is to bring people to a knowledge of Jesus Christ and his church?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's two parts that really get people in love with the church. The first one is education, and the second one is prayer. And you can't have one without the other.
There you go.
Because if you have education without prayer, then it makes no sense. And if you have prayer without education, you're not getting anything out of it. So for education, I think at the very least, something needs to happen with Catholic schools, sermons, youth groups, or preferably all three. Because for Catholic schools, I have a great friend in South Africa who's part of my youth group. They have religion once a month, and the only thing they've gone over for the past 6 years are the fruits of the Spirit. That's the only thing they've talked about for the past 6 years in religion class.
Terrible.
That's it. Yeah, and religion once a month. So for Catholic schools, I really don't think people are getting a whole lot out of Catholic schools because I read Father Murr's book, and Father Murr told a great story of how he was educated by a Dominican sister in second grade, and they were teaching philosophy and theology at second grade.
I love it.
Right now, it's amazing. It's quite amazing in the 50s. Yeah, but right now in the Catholic school system, we have nothing like that. Yeah. It's just talking about fruits of the Spirit over and over again, and anything else that's easy to talk about and that people easily understand. And that's the problem. People aren't being challenged in the Catholic school system. I go to a Catholic school. Yeah. So for the sermons, I think Father Murr said in the interview, all you're hearing is priests rambling on and on and on about nonsense. Yep. It's true. We're not hearing anything about the afterlife. We're not hearing anything about how to get to heaven. We're not hearing anything about what the church actually means and what it means to be part of Christ's one true church. And then for the youth group, I think that youth group is, by many good Catholic families, youth group is seen as a thing that fixes both of those problems. When right now all youth group is playing a game, and if you're lucky, getting some minor direction on the Holy Spirit. And while listening to Christian rock music in the background, which no one's fond of, I can tell you that. Amen. So I think those three things really need to be reformed if we want any education going on in our Catholic schools. And then for prayer, I think that we need to tell people more and more about what prayer actually means and how beautiful it is. So a great way to do this is by giving like mini lectures just on what the rosaries actually mean. We've done some of those on Zoom. Good. It's great. The rosary is one of the most beautiful devotions, and it really gets. If you start praying the rosary, you are going to start falling in love with the faith. There's no way out of it. Well, I'm just going to take that clip what you just said, and it's going to go on YouTube, and we're going to get thousands of people to hear what you just said because it makes sense. You got a PhD in common sense, and common sense ain't that common, William. Let me ask you this, and then I'll let Father Murr also chime in on this solution thing. I have found, William, young people
when I give them the Fatima message, either they say it's true or they say, nah, it can't be. And when I've convinced them about Our Lady's message to 3 children in 1917, I have found that young people buy into that and they go, wow, Fatima, you mean souls are going to hell because no one's there to pray and make sacrifices? I need to get involved and make sacrifice. See, in other words, it's a challenge. And I think you nailed it when you said they're not being challenged. I'm convinced that we have to really ask a lot of the young people, but that's my take. Father Murr, correct me if I'm off on that.
You've never been off a day of.
Oh, I have been too. Go ahead, but tell me what.
Listen, I would like to jump into something that
Sure.
that Will brought up.
Yes.
And agree with it wholeheartedly.
Yes.
After the Council of Trent, I've read about it. I wasn't there myself.
Oh, I thought you were there.
But after the Council of Trent, Saint Charles Borromeo, my great patron saint,
November 4th.
put together a catechism.
He did.
And the reason for that catechism was to bring the teachings of the council to the people.
Amen.
But he also did something that I think has to be done today.
Okay.
I really believe it has to be done. And that is that at every Sunday Mass in the Catholic world, priests were given what to talk about.
That's right. Catechesis.
What we're talking about this Sunday.
Yep.
And it was catechism.
Yep.
It was catechism. That's
Yep.
what they were teaching.
Yep.
It is, you can say, well, the Mass is not the time for catechism. Well, yes, it is.
Absolutely.
When you have nothing else. This is the only real contact we have with so many people, and we're not taking advantage of it.
Yeah.
People have to be taught. What Will brought up about ignorance
Yes.
is absolutely, this is abhorrent. It's terrible.
Yeah.
And we've got to, it's not being addressed.
Right.
The way to address it, I think, is exactly what Will said, through sermons.
Yes.
And those sermons should be, they should be teaching something.
Yes. Will, let me ask you this. Father Murr nailed it there, too. I'm thinking of Fulton J. Sheen and his Life is Worth Living series that back in the 1970s I took from records, and they were made in 1965 right after the council, and it was Bishop Sheen's convert course, and I've distributed millions of copies through Lighthouse Catholic Media, St. Joseph Communications, and now Virgin Most Powerful Radio. My question to you, do you think Fulton Sheen's videos that you see on YouTube and other things, do you think young people can relate to what Bishop Sheen is saying? And even though he lived many, many years ago, and that's the question I have. What do you think of Fulton Sheen for young people?
Oh, absolutely. Fulton Sheen is one of the greatest inspirations for young people today. Like, his messages, they will never go. They'll never go out. They are so inspiring, even in today's world, even for young people. And actually, we had someone who joined the group, and he's about 21, and he converted just by listening to Fulton Sheen lectures. They're never out of touch. They always hit right at the point.
I love it.
Right.
And he prophesizes things that are like exactly true today that we would never have guessed. He knows how to tell, like Father Murr said, the 2 things to get to heaven. Number 1, he's really into his faith. Number 2, he had one of the greatest senses of humor I've ever heard.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a quote from Fulton Sheen and let Father Murr talk about Sheen because he loves Fulton Sheen even more than I do, and that's hard to do. Bishop Sheen said something about the more divine a religion is, the more the world will ridicule you. For the spirit of the world is the enemy of Christ. And William, I think of today right now, people who do not want to hear what Christ taught about the meaning and purpose of life. And we are at odds with the world, the devil, and the flesh more than it has been in my lifetime. I've never seen so many people who just feel what they think that Jesus Christ and his church is really evil for teaching the meaning and purpose of life, and that all lives matter and things like that. So I couldn't agree more with you, Father Murr. What are your thoughts? Because you also listened to Bishop Sheen when you weren't, when you were a younger man, also like I did.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I would recommend to everyone who's listening and to everyone who's not listening.
Yeah, right.
I would recommend The Life of Christ by Fulton Sheen. After the Bible, That should be the second most important book in your home, I think. It's absolutely magnificent to go through the life of Christ the way Fulton J. Sheen does, with scripture, full of scripture and meaning and beauty, is great. It helps you become a true lover of Christ. It really does, to get to know Christ personally. It's a magnificent book, The Life of Christ.
Brother Murr, let me just jump in, because back in the 1980s, I read that book and I put it on cassette tape. Everybody remember cassette tapes? Yeah, back in the 80s. And now I put it on CD in the 90s. And now I have it as a download for free. If anybody wants to get that book that Father Murr just talked about, The Life of Christ, it's 300 and some pages long. So it's like, I think it's 11 and a half hours long to have it read to you. But it's just beautiful. Call 877-526-2151. If you want to give a donation, would help with us, that'd be great, but it's not necessary. So go call 877-526-2151. Get Bishop Sheen's Life of Christ. William, do you have that book in your library?
I believe so. I believe it's upstairs.
Good, because if you don't, I'd say get the download, and I would also, since I have the rights on it, you go ahead and tell all your young people on your chats that they can get that by going to Virgin Most Powerful Radio. I want all of the people that are following you to have that book as a download. We're going to take a quick break.
Well, let me just jump in here real quick.
Sure.
If you find out the Sunday gospel, next Sunday's gospel, and go to Fulton J. Sheen's Life of Christ and look it up and just read it. It's only 2 or 3 paragraphs.
There you go.
It's there in the index. When you hear that gospel at Mass, it's going to jump out at you.
Awesome.
Beautifully.
Great advice. Great advice. Hey, I just want to mention one more thing before we take a break, because we always talk about full Sheen ahead. I have one more quote from Bishop Sheen that I think is, really a good one from Sheen. He says, this is taken from Bishop Strickland, quoting Fulton Sheen. He said that you cannot preach goodness to an evil world and expect to be anything less than crucified. Did you get that, Sheen? He's telling us that if we're going to preach Christ to a world, expect to be crucified. In other words, without Good Friday, there's no Easter Sunday. You're listening to the Terry and Jesse Show. Father Charles Murr is joining me, and William, 14 years old. He's on fire for the Catholic faith. We're going to talk a little bit more with William about his Catholic faith and how we can get more young people fired up about Jesus Christ and his bride, the church, through education and through prayer and through your prayers. We'll be back with more to inspire you.
Daddy, what do you mean? Why did you come in my room then? What did you do?
In Luke 7, Jesus said, I tell you, her many sins have been forgiven her, because she has been shown great love. According to St. John of the Cross, Christians should always remember that the value of their good works is not based on number and excellence. Their value is based on the love for God that prompts them to do the works. May we always be motivated by true love for God and not worry so much about what we do, but why we do it.
How does the baby move in your tummy? How does the baby eat? Can the baby hear me? How did the baby get in there?
Wow, a pregnancy can sure generate a lot of questions. But what's important is that a baby is a baby, inside and out of the womb. Not just after birth, but 9 months before, at conception.
That's right. Every baby is a miracle. Hello, my name is Marianne Koharski. I'm the director of Pro-Life Across America. If you know someone who is pregnant or in need of alternatives or assistance, or would like to support the work of Pro-Life Across America, please visit our website at prolifeacrossamerica.org, or better yet, simply dial #250 on your cell phone and say that the keyword pro-life. Pro-Life Across America is non-political and totally educational.
A baby's heart is beating 18 days from conception. Pro-life across America, the Billboard people.
This is Terry Barber. I want to thank you for your support here at Virgin Most Powerful Radio. Here's an easy way to do it. If you're going to sell or buy a house, call Real Estate for Life, 877-543-3871, because they're going to get you a Christ-centered agent to purchase your home or to sell your home. And at the close of escrow, a portion of his commission goes right back to Virgin Most Powerful Radio. Call 877-543-3871. Thank you so much for your support.
Welcome back to the Terry and Jesse Show. To join the conversation, call 888-526-2151. Now, here's Terry and Jesse.
Welcome back to the Terry and Jesse Show. Father Charles Murs filling in for Jesse with me today, and we're talking to a young 14-year-old young man named William. And before I ask William to give us his email address once again, I want to just quote St. John Paul II, because this is what William is doing for young people. And I think all of us listening going, well, I want my son or daughter to get involved with this. Here's what the saint said: deepen your knowledge of Jesus. This ends loneliness, overcomes sadness and uncertainty, gives real meaning to life. It curbs the passions. It exalts the ideals. It expands the energies in charity. It brings light into decisive choices. Let Christ be for you the way, the truth, and the life. That's what William is introducing young people to do. And we have young people all over the world right now with problems of suicide, depression, drug addiction. And what is William doing? Teaching them about the Catholic faith. William, one more time, how can people contact you using social media?
Please email me at ringo.clays@gmail.com. ringo.clays@gmail.com. ringo.clays@gmail.
Awesome. Father Murr, I'm going to let you take it from here, because the thing that I repeated earlier is so many young people, by the time they're 23, 83% of them aren't practicing. And I'm really thinking what William is doing with social media, sharing the faith with people, encouraging them to study their faith. I just think it's outstanding, but that's my take.
Well, Terry, it's sort of like saying this young man has never met his mother and his father, and they're both disturbed because he doesn't write home more often. Well, he's never met them.
Right.
The problem, Will hit it beautifully.
Yeah.
The problem that we have basically is ignorance of the faith.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Right.
So when you get to be old enough, to 18 or 20 years old, to where you're the person in charge of you, mm-hmm. You're not under someone else's authority. Now you're on your own. Mm-hmm. You say, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why would I follow that? Well, it hasn't made any sense all of these years because a lot of people have never taken the time to help you understand it. I remember in years ago in New York, I went to a wake service. Mm-hmm. We said the rosary, right?
Yep.
All of these people were from out of town, and there was a whole group of children there. And they looked astounded while I was leading the rosary. Mm-hmm. And I said, afterwards, I came up to them. I said, "Why were you were looking around during the rosary?" And you know what they were astounded at?
Tell me.
They couldn't believe that their parents knew how to answer all those prayers.
Wow.
They had they had no idea that their parents knew the prayer to St. Michael the Archangel, the Salve Regina.
Sure.
And they did it all by memory. They had never heard this. Well, of course, these kids are going to grow up with what devotion?
Yeah.
They don't know anything.
Sure.
This is the problem.
Yeah, knowledge again. Yeah, it comes back to... William, summarize again what you're doing on the internet for those who just tuned in. I want them to understand your approach right now with the youth group idea. Can you summarize that for us?
For sure. So we have a chat, and then on this chat, then we have Zoom calls every week. So we bring on great speakers. We had Father Murr on last week. Mm-hmm. So we have great speakers on, and they give quick talks just to give a quick education about some topic
to
the kids. And then we also have Zooms. We We also have Zooms just for fun with me or a friend going over something. For example, we did one on John 6, which is the great Eucharistic verse last week. We just have Zooms for fun where we go over some other topic. It doesn't have to be a speaker. We just get on, educate them about any theological topic, have speakers on, and then that's the end of the Zoom. It's a lot of fun, and it's a great experience. I met so many friends from it.
Let me ask you this, William. At your age, 14, I fell in love with Jesus Christ and the Holy Eucharist through the Mass because Bishop Sheen's old cassette priest retreats, and I was just like, wow, that's really the Mass. So I started going to daily Mass, and then now I'm going to be 64 in November. So 50 years ago, that happened to me, and here you are at age 14, and I just have to say, I'm so impressed that you're willing to share this faith with the internet. And let me ask you this, with COVID-19 kind of winding down, what are your plans when we can actually start meeting? Are you wanting to put conferences on for young people, or have you thought down the road that when we can start meeting up with people, what are you planning to do for the future? That's my question.
Oh, absolutely. You brought up conferences, and I actually have been at work with a great friend of mine, Jakob, who's also in the youth group. I've been at work with him for about a year now, and we're trying to plan a youth rally with an extraordinary form Mass at the beginning for our
Wow, I love it. Father Murr, can you imagine this young man? We're going to have to keep in touch with you, William, and have you back when things keep developing, because we want our listeners. I can see that mom and dad listening right now are going, hey, my boys, my daughters need to get in touch with this guy. One more time with your email address, because I do things in sets of 3. One more time.
Absolutely. ringo.clays@gmail.com. ringo.clays@gmail.com. ringo.clays@gmail.com.
William, you are amazing. I'm just going to let you go now, and then I'm going to have Father Murr and I wrap up the show. So, Father Murr, actually, I would rather Father Murr to give a blessing, even though it's a few minutes before we go. I want, Father, could you give us a blessing, your priestly blessing, please?
I will. And Will, are you still there?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, you still there? Good.
Yes.
I'm going to give you. I'm going to give you a special little gift, real quick. You love the Rosary. Traditionally, those 3 Ave Marias at the beginning of the Rosary, 1, 2, 3. It's not for faith, hope, and charity. We used to say in Latin, and this is a Spanish tradition.
Educate me.
Hail Mary, full of grace, ante partum for the first one, intra partum for the second one, post partum for the third one. Before birth, during birth, and after birth of Christ. Those are the Mary is a virgin before, during, and after. That's the meaning of those 3 Ave Marias. They're beautiful.
That's it. I learned something. Thank you.
Amazing.
Will, thank you so much for being on the program.
Yeah.
Terry, did I tell you this kid is great?
Yeah, you did, and you just always teach me something every time I talk with you, Father Murr, and I appreciate that, and I know our listeners do too. So, Will, before you leave, let's have Father Murr give us a blessing.
Dominus vobiscum.
Et cum spiritu tuo.
Benedictio Dei omnipotentis, Pater,
Et Spiritus
et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti,
Amen.
descendet super vos, et maneat in aeternum semper. Amen.
Amen. Father Murr had to do it in Latin. It's a very appropriate prayer right now. William, thanks again for joining us here.
This is a learning.
Thank you.
A learning experience.
Absolutely. And William, a last thing I'm going to throw at you, and that is I had a gentleman on the air talking about how to bring Catholics back to the church. And he thought that when we took Latin out, which wasn't Vatican II, we were supposed to know our parts of the Mass of Latin in Vatican II. But my question to you is, he said we have a branding problem, and that is people don't understand, like they have all kinds of different languages. And do you find that when you go to a Latin Mass, that if you went anywhere in the world, it would be the same? Is that reassuring a 14-year-old man like you, young man like you?
Absolutely. It makes the church universal, which is something that we don't have today. Every Mass is celebrated differently, and that's the problem.
I just had to put that in because I happen to agree with you. I'm going to twist Father Murr, but I don't think I'd have to twist him very far. Father Murr, wouldn't it be great to bring back the universal language to the church?
Oh, did we let it go, or when did?
Well, we let it go in practice. We see what's happened. Yeah, no, you're right.
Of course, no,
It's the
no,
official
no,
language of the church. You're right. But
It,
how many?
it is the official language. It is the official language of the church, and it has to come back, and it will come back.
Yeah,
You're
it
gonna
will.
see. I'm not going to live long enough to see it,
But it'll come back.
But hopefully, God will grant you that grace, Will.
Absolutely. You will, Will. With age 14, you're going to see it and you're going to go back and say, wow, look what, and this is going to renew the church because the way you worship is the way you believe. That's an old axiom. I want to recommend a book to everybody right now from Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger. It's printed by Ignatius Press. And it's on the liturgy. And boy, it just popped out of my head. The Spirit of the Liturgy, of course. That's the book. And that book will help you understand the liturgy in a very supernatural aspect. And I think that that's what we're missing right now. People think that when they go to Mass, it's almost like going to McDonald's, and that's unfortunate. And the other thing I want to bring up, William, when people come back from the COVID-19 deal and they start coming back, I think that it's people like you that are going to invite people to understand the Mass, that they will fall deep in love with the Mass because they just haven't been taught. And it's inspirational for me as an old guy to know that you and these young people are working together to share the Catholic faith and inform people and teach people to pray and teach people to study their faith. It's that, to me, today's show was so reassuring. Father Murr, does that also warm your heart to hear young men like William?
Absolutely. This is Terry, I'm beginning to think there might be hope. There might be hope after us.
Yeah, we need hope, boy. We need hope. William, keep up the good work, my friend, and may God richly bless you and your family, and enjoy my book that I sent, How to Share Your Faith with Anyone. Okay?
Thank you so much.
God love you, William. Take care and give
Thank
my
you,
best to
Will.
your parents. You bet. God love you. Father Murr, thank you for sharing Will's number with me because, again, being at this for 41 years, I don't meet many young men like William, and I'm going to keep in touch with him and send him more material. I'm going to send him Fulton Sheen's Life is Worth Living because he's a young man that's going to help Holy Mother Church be restored with people like that because we need young people like him.
Terry, I've got to tell you this.
Tell me.
I got an email from Will.
Yeah.
Right? Now I didn't know him from Adam. I get an email from him asking me to be on their show.
Yes.
I responded negatively. I said no, thank you. This and the other. He wrote me back and reminded me of my responsibility.
I love it.
I said yes.
I love it.
Time. Right.
That's awesome. Well, I'll tell you, that's what we need. Father Murr, last thing I'm going to ask you, one more question. What state should we be living in?
Absolutely the state of grace.
Amen. And how do we do that? By living in the presence of God, frequenting the sacraments. This is the weekend coming up. Let's make a special effort to visit Jesus Christ in the Holy Eucharist. And if it's been